Patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there.
So Alejandro Kirk, new father, by the way. Big congrats to Alejandro Daddy Kirk at this point. He did make his appearance in spring about 2 weeks after everybody else. I know that there is a little bit of concern amongst the fan base that maybe this will result in a slow start. Personally, I'm actually fine with Danny Jansen taking more than his fair share of the workload in the first half of April here. I have no problem with it. I think that down the road, it could wind up working out that Kirk gets more of the workload down that, it's going to be, I'm really flubbing this, but what I'm saying is it's going to benefit this team later in the season if Kirk is a little bit more refreshed at that point. Are you concerned at all about the late arrival of Alejandro Kirk to spring training?
No, let's look at this as something that could turn into a real positive. As you just said, that's something that I don't think Blue Jay fans really want to admit or have the conversation. But Scott, if we're having an open, honest conversation, Alejandro Kirk deteriorated right before our very eyes in that second half last season. He deteriorated right before our very eyes. And the problem is the Blue Jays hit him in the cleanup spot. So that's not a spot where you can see deterioration, right? So the whole idea of him ramping into shape, and why did he need to ramp in shape? Wasn't because we're concerned about some injury. It was because he celebrated a real life great thing, right? So I think his spirits are buoyed. Boom. I think his spirits are buoyed. He saw that it's really go time because, all last season, he would have had to be looking over his shoulder. Remember, he was this close to being a Cleveland Guardian in the offseason last year if Cleveland was willing to pull the trigger on that Jose Ramirez trade. So Kirk is a guy who was constantly looking over his shoulder. How long will I be a Blue Jay? Now the writing is on the wall. You are a Toronto Blue Jay. Doesn't have to feel any need to rush back. I mean, what am I supposed to be disappointed with? That Danny Jansen's getting more time at catcher? Like, oh my God, that sounds like a yes, please scenario anyway to me. And by the way, Bassett would just one more thing with Jansen and Bassett calling the game to Jansen now. Could that even improve Jansen between the ears as well? Between innings, man, in that 3-2 spot, I might have gone this, you went this, and having that conversation. By the way, as another thing that Bassett brings to the table. But no, I'm so excited about the catching scenario for the Toronto Blue Jays, even with the Moreno trade. Absolutely expecting big things from Alejandro Kirk. I love the idea that he can ramp up and hopefully save some in the tank for that second half. I mean, Espinal and Kirk both just deteriorated right before our eyes in that second half last season. And it's as much depth as there is on this Blue Jay team. Kirk in particular we just can't have. Well, like I said, gentlemen, the Blue Jays hit him fourth for crying out loud. You're going to need a full season. Going to need a good season from Alejandro Kirk. So no. I'm not worried about any sort of slow start or late start, anything along these lines. Let's also remember, gentlemen, what if something does happen and it is more of a ramp up for Kirk than we're even anticipating? Dalton Varsho can catch a game or two each week for you with Jansen taking the rest of that. I mean, that cupboard is not bare for the Blue Jays right now.
Yeah, catching is still a real strength of this organization. Yeah. I know that there is a little bit of concern more amongst the fan base than the coaching staff and the organization, obviously, about how do you split up this workload? How do you go about getting all of these guys at bats? Are you fine? Like, do you think it'll be a 50-50 split behind the plate between Kirk and Jansen, or do you think we could wind up seeing Jansen take more of the load behind the plate? How do you see this all playing out?
Boy, I'm so fascinated by how it'll play out because I've never seen depth on a Toronto Blue Jay team like this before. Right now, the Blue Jays don't even have a first baseman, but at some point soon, Vlad and Belt will be healthy. Like just the options that gives the lineup alone, just from that position. Now look at the options you have at second base, because Santiago Espinal is showing, hey, never mind that second half last season. You see the shape I've come into. I won't break down. Like you see the spring Espinal's having. Wow, the spring Biggio's having.
Yeah,
there's so much depth around this team right now that I don't think anything is in stone right now. I don't think they have any plans for it'll be Jansen 60%, Kirk 40%. I think they will take it on a game-by-game basis. This is where Don Mattingly is going to come into play, because Mattingly will be able to help Schneider with the lineup. Say, you know what, I got a feeling today? Actually, Jansen needs to be in. This pitcher throws this, and this. We need to have Jansen in. I don't know if we want Kirk in today because of what he throws. Let's get Belt in the DH spot. There's going to be so much mixing and matching opportunities for Schneider, and I think Don Mattingly is going to be very, very key on that as well. So I actually don't think there's anything sort of a set in place. So Scott, to answer the question, I won't be surprised one way or the other. It ends up being Kirk catching a little more. It ends up being Jansen catching a little more. I won't be surprised one way or the other because the Blue Jays with this depth are in a position where they can ride the hot hand. That is very exciting.
It's been kind of cool to watch. You look around the diamond, right? And sure, it was easy to look at second base and be like, probably offensively the biggest hole on this team. But man, the competition that it has created between Espinal, Biggio, and Merrifield, this may not be the black hole of offense that it looked like at the beginning of the season. I'm not saying that Espinal and Biggio are going to continue to hit 400 throughout the season, but I think a little bit of competition and a little bit of fear of losing some ABs is not a bad thing to have.
Well, and it's why I think a trade is coming. The depth that's been shown at second base has really pleasantly surprised me. The bullpen in AAA this season is going to be a major league bullpen on some of these lower tiered major league teams, like the depth. So that's another reason maybe why we shouldn't be as concerned about Barrios right now, because they could trade to replace him. But I've just been blown away. I thought Scott called it at the beginning of last season. He said, look, I love Santiago Espinal as well, but my concern is if you play him every day, at some point, that's going to get exposed. That's exactly what we saw happen. So I love that he's come into camp this season in a completely different shape. He's I don't know if you've seen interviews with him. He's talked about a few times that there was a few times where they showed him in batting practice, and he was hitting balls opposite field with power, and he was literally in Spanish turning to his buddies and literally saying, I wasn't even able to do that last year. Like, he is noticing there's a difference to his body shape and his approach. He's noticing he's a much better player. His confidence level seems to be through the roof. And Kevin Biggio, I know it's not for the faint of heart. The Kevin Biggio is the position player version of Nate Pearson. I know this is the fourth year in a row that we're saying, or who knows how long we've been saying, hey, I wonder if Biggio can do it. But gentlemen, I'm going to say what I always say. It is possible that for the last couple seasons, we have not at all seen a healthy Kevin Biggio. Yeah. It's possible we've not seen him healthy at all. What if he is healthy this season? And what if he actually does have the tools that we were so excited? Remember, it's now a Bichette and Vlad convo. For the longest time, it was Biggio, Bichette, and Vlad combo, right? As the three son of the major leaguers. What if that's still possible? What if that's still true and could still play itself out? I'll tell you, the depth on this team, I can't tell you how many times I just daydream if I'm John Schneider. I mean, my God, at second base, that depth. We talk about the depth at first base, the depth going on behind the plate. It is just so exciting. And I wonder if the Blue Jays saw this coming. I'm sure they did. I didn't see this coming. I'll tell you that. I didn't see the video game numbers from Biggio this spring. I didn't see the video game numbers from Espinal this spring. They are both making it very clear that, hey, just so you guys know, I require everyday at bats on the major league level. Just so you guys know, I'm absolutely ready for this. This whole time, I fully wanted Whit Merrifield as the second baseman. Now it's such a debate, and somehow it's a debate over three guys. Like, wow, the depth, gentlemen. Wow.
One thing about Biggio that has impressed me this spring, outside of his bat, is he's looked really good in the outfield.
Absolutely,
he has looked the best in the outfield that I've seen his entire career. He never looked like he was overly comfortable. He always was proficient out in the outfield. He was never, when Biggio was put out into the outfield, it's not like everyone was like, oh, dear God, this is going to be an adventure. But he has made some really good routes to the ball in right. He has made some really good throws from the outfield. And I think him as that utility guy, that fourth outfield spot, I think with this spring, he's kind of securing himself a spot in this lineup. Awesome. Unless, like you say, there's a trade.
Well, in all due respect to last year, but if Biggio wanted to work on something last year, there was no Don Mattingly to work on it with, and you weren't going to go to Teo. All due respect to Teo or Lourdes, you weren't going for them for defensive advice. Now Varsho walks in the door. Now Kevin Kiermaier walks in the door. Way different story, way different scenario. You can already see the influence these guys are having. The routes that Varsho and Kiermaier take the balls are as good as there is in all of baseball. So I would bet you cash money they've had conversations with Biggio, because you're exactly right, Scott. It's palpable, like even body language-wise, how much more comfortable he looks out there right now.
Adam loves talking Biggio. We make a point of doing it every single time we turn the mic on.
Standard behavior.
Yeah.
His dad has a great first name.
Yes, he does. Slim Daddy Craigie.
Yeah.
Kevin Biggio, yes. If if this is it, if he's healthy for the first time in 5 years, he would just be a game changer for this team. Like the ceiling on him to contribute to this team would be off the charts.
Well, and that's the thing, Adam. Couldn't another team see that ceiling as well? And here comes that starting pitcher back to replace a Barrios or to replace Kikuchi when those wheels inevitably fall off. I won't be the Debbie Downer now. Everyone's high on Kikuchi. Fine, I won't be the Debbie Downer now. But when that inevitably happens, we'll revisit this conversation. But Adam, you're seeing exactly what I'm talking about, man. What if there's another team out there that covets Biggio as a second baseman, or Espinal as a second baseman, or any of these AAA bullpen arms that we're going to have here? I mean, I think the Jays are really well poised to make a trade.
Yeah, I don't want to see them rush into a trade, but I mean, by mid-August, right? Anything can happen. But yeah, as of right now, I don't know. I kind of spent the offseason thinking Espinal would be the odd man out, but the more I think about it, he's the only one of those three who I feel comfortable replacing at shortstop or third base if there is
Great point.
a bad taco situation. So I don't think we can afford to lose Espinal just from a defensive second guy up.
Unless you're really high on Barger. Unless you're really high on Barger, who does play a good shortstop and second base, but 23 and no major league experience.
Blowing it up in AAA and he's hitting 350 down there, then maybe. But again, that's a conversation for August, right? When we've seen 4 months of Barger just lighting AAA on fire, then we can have that talk. But